Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Dither. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's Thursday, January 16th, 2025. And dither, one of my favorite words, to be indecisive. Don't ever be a ditherer. The New York Jets are giving an absolute college-level lesson in dithering when it comes to their search for a new GM and a new coach. Why am I saying they're being so indecisive? Because have you taken a look at the list of people they have interviewed to be their head coach, to be their general manager? We have spent a few good minutes here on Nothing Personal talking about the company they hired. Some of their former employees got together, made a consulting firm, not Samson and Coca, but it should have been. A company hired to aid in the process of hiring a coach and GM. That process has become a joke. I want to go through what an interview could be, should be, and would be if you're the New York Jets and Woody Johnson. A parade of people come in. Just take one. Take one off the list. We'll read the list in a moment, but just take one. We're going to take Aaron Glenn. Maybe it's a Zoom. Maybe it's in person. For an in-person interview, there's logistics. You have to get someone in the loop. Maybe your traveling secretary, which we would do. Maybe the consulting firm to earn its fee gets involved in getting the coach to New York. Maybe they send a plane the way the Bears did for Mike McCarthy. Maybe that's what Woody does. But there's still a ride to the airport. Where's the FBO, fixed base operation where private planes leave from? A car to pick up the coach, bring him to the facility. Gets to the facility, gets handed an itinerary. Done that with managerial candidates. Here's the people you're going to see, and here's the time. 11 to 12, meet with search firm. 12 to 1, meet with head of football, baseball operations. Of course, when there's no GM and no coach, that's an issue, but there's somebody else in the football operations. 1 to 2, lunch. Maybe you have them meet with the CFO, general counsel. I think they're hiring one of those too. Maybe you have them meet with other owners. Then a meeting with Woody Johnson happens, of course. When you are interviewing candidates, you tell people who are doing the interviewing, here's your time slot with this candidate. Here's some things I'd like you to go over. I wonder whether Aaron Rodgers' name comes up at all. I wonder whether, other than Rex Ryan, when an interview was happening, whether there is a serious discussion about whether Aaron should be the quarterback, whether they want to run it back, what their philosophy is, offense, defense, special teams. Maybe you ask specific questions. What do you do with the man on second and third, down 1 run in the 8th inning with your number 8 hitter up? What would you do? Maybe they do that to the football coach. What would you do? You've got the ball on your own 40 with 1.5 minutes left, 2 timeouts, 4th and 1. Maybe they go through game situations. Maybe they do it as a test. Maybe they keep track of who does what. Well, this guy would be terrible at clock management, but this guy's really good at talking to his players because he reads motivational books. Maybe they do something as asinine as Woody Johnson walks into the room and there's a game console waiting and they play Madden and they test to see who Ron Rivera would take as his team on Madden because they do it as an all-star team, not as a team. Maybe they do that. Maybe when the GM comes in, they talk about what would you do with this year's draft if you had the number 1 pick, if you had the number 4 pick? What are the type of resources you need? Let's take a look at our weight room. What do you think of that? It's such a bunch of horse hockey that I am worked up because you don't need to interview this many people to find your guy, no matter what. Rex Ryan, Jeff Hafley, Vance Joseph, Arthur Smith, Aaron Glenn. Their interim, Jeff Ulbrich, had a chance. Ulbrich, can you imagine, Coco? We went through every name before the show and I still screwed it up. 4869. Just cut that. I want to do the list because it's way more funny and impactful if I go straight through. Here we go. Rex Ryan, Jeff Hafley, Vance Joseph, Arthur Smith, Aaron Glenn, their interim coach, Jeff Ulbrich, Joe Witt, Ron Rivera, Matt Nagy, Mike Loxley, Steve Spagnuolo, Darren Rizzi, Mike Vrabel, not available, Josh McCown, Joe Brady, Brian Flores, Brian Greasy, Matthew Coca, David Samson, Dan Lebitard, Stu Gatz, Pablo Torre, Amin El Hassan. The list goes on. It turns out that Billy Gill's going to have an opportunity to interview for this job. Why? Because what are the criteria? Being a coordinator, offensive, defense, being a former coach? The Jets like going back to the well. Do they like that as a possibility? You think Woody Johnson spends his time thinking to himself, I'll know it. I'll know it when I see it. I'll know the candidate that I want to work with. They've interviewed purportedly like 13 GMs as well. Do you think they're doing like matchmaker, make me a match? And they're going to do like Photoshop opportunities with the GM and the coach? How do they look together? Are they doing practice press conferences? We would talk to our managerial candidates about the media, how to deal with the media, give them some media training. Maybe that's what they did. Maybe they're giving media training to every candidate, and that's taking 4 or 5 hours over 5-6 days. Maybe they're having every coaching candidate in a game of Survivor or Squid Game. That would be something. You have them all come, red light, green light, whoever's the last man standing. Maybe you starve them, put them on an island, get a few cameras out there and say, hey, Rex Ryan's really angling for this. It looks like he's going to get it. And then you've got Darren Rizzi who runs over and says, what are you talking about? And then you do challenges. Maybe that. Did you ever think of the possibility? And I'll be despondent, Coca, if this is the case. Do you think the Jets have an hourly deal with Mike Tannenbaum's company instead of just a fee-based success deal? Hey, help us get a coach and GM and we'll give you $100,000 once we hire the coach and GM. You think maybe Mike Tannenbaum learned from Ira Axelrad, who used to be a partner at Proskauer, used to be our attorney at Proskauer, now works for Woody Johnson? Maybe Ira's taught Mike how to charge by the hour. Ira was really good at that. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're sending bills to Woody Johnson and they have no interest in having this come to a conclusion. Every day that passes makes Woody Johnson and the Jets look more incompetent, and you'd think that that would be impossible. If I'm one of these candidates, I'm telling the Jets, you know what? You've got as much time as Pete Alonso does to sign with the Mets. I'm giving you 72 hours and then I'm pulling my name. I don't need this aggravation. Aggravation. Aren't we all in search of a life that minimizes aggravation? It's way worse than drinking, smoking, riding a moped in Bali. Aggravation will crush you. If you ever say to yourself, oh, I'm not going to get worked up. It's all good. It's just a lawsuit. Yeah, I'm named in another lawsuit. All good. It's just work. It's a stupid fight that you're having with your partner, your significant other, your friend. Have you ever thought about the fights that we have with people in our lives and then say to yourself, what are we doing? Have you ever run to a Subway and just missed it and you're schwitzing while it's cold out and said, what are we doing? Have you ever worked your arse off on a project, presented it, and it got summarily dismissed like that by someone in charge? And you just say, what? Why? Have you ever been behind someone online at McDonald's or at the grocery store who's taken forever, and you're just thinking to yourself, I'm wasting my life away because I chose the wrong line, the wrong toll line, the wrong TSA line? Aggravation. I've got a solution for those people who get aggravated. You have to lower your give a crap meter. I learned this from my uncle, my late Uncle Barry. A shout out to Barry Samson. Died way too young of multiple myeloma. One of his lessons, and he had many lessons, is that aggravation is a totally self-imposed mental state. There is nothing in the world that should aggravate you without you giving it the power to aggravate. World peace, climate change, who the president is, your lot in life, money, fame, power, prowess, the daily activities. We all get aggravated. And he used to get aggravated until he was diagnosed. And he said it was the most freeing day of his life because all of the aggravation left him. And he was able to carry that for the last years of his life. And he said, don't wait to get diagnosed to be free from aggravation. And there will be people who misunderstand your give a crap meter, your ability to deal with what life throws at you, with not caring. You cannot let people correlate aggravation and passion or aggravation and caring. I started thinking about this. I think about it a lot, but this came up because yesterday, Jimmy Haslam, who is the owner of the Cleveland Browns, he's involved in another lawsuit. And he's the one who decided with his wife and child to take Deshaun Watson. And we've taken him to task for giving Watson that $230 million, for giving Watson even $1. We've rooted against the Cleveland Browns until Watson got hurt, and then we rooted for the Cleveland Browns. We wanted Winston to be great. Didn't quite work out. We wanted the Browns to win without Watson, and then Watson took care of it by being injured, and he's finished. Very unlikely to play again for the Browns. We went through a story about how the Browns are trying to build a new stadium and how they have a deal to build a stadium outside of Cleveland. And then we did a segment about the Modell Law. Remember Art Modell? Picked up his team and left. There is a new law in Cleveland that if you are going to move your team out of Cleveland, it's called the Modell Law, you have to offer to sell your team. You have to give residents a chance to buy the team before you sell, before you move the team out of Cleveland, even to a place in the suburbs of Ohio. When we went through that, we said to you, what a nuisance for people who own assets in Cleveland, a sports asset, when the law should have been moving it out of Ohio, and even that is a law that's tough to do, but moving it out of the Cleveland City arena, Cleveland City limits, seems very limiting. Well, guess what? Yesterday, the Cleveland City officials actually followed through. They have filed a lawsuit against the Haslams, against the Browns, over the team's move to Brook Park, which is just outside of inner Cleveland. They're planning on moving for 2029. And they're using this state law, this Modell Law, to try to get the Haslams to change their mind, to do a deal in Cleveland. They're not trying to buy the team from the Haslams. There's no way Cleveland as a city is going to buy it. There's no way that the Haslams will be forced to sell by either the court or Roger Goodell. This is a lawsuit where public officials are trying to save face, thinking that people in Cleveland are despondent with them and will vote them out of office because they were on deck standing guard while the Browns moved to the suburbs. There are teams who move all the time to different locations within their home territory. The San Francisco 49ers are a great example. The Golden State Warriors are a great example. Coincidence, they're in the same place. The New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn, same area. That's a different state, for crying out loud, which is closer to the Chiefs maybe moving to Missouri or Kansas. Philadelphia flirting with New Jersey and the city of Philly before choosing the district, the stadium district. The Chicago Bears trying to do a deal, maybe downtown Chicago. Maybe it'll be in Arlington. Maybe it'll be someplace else in the Chicago suburbs in the area. The list goes on and on. Man, that's a lazy code word for when you run out of examples, isn't it, Coca? When you just say, and on, and there's more, but wait, there's more. Whenever someone says that, including me, I gave you all I got off the top of my head. I got nothing else. I can't remember any other teams that have done it, but there's a ton of them. So can you imagine that as part of the Modell law, and this is part of the lawsuit, the city of Cleveland and the mayor have to give the Haslams 10 days, a notice of 10 days to start the process of selling the team or giving the right to buy the team to local people in Cleveland. Apparently, Cleveland gave the 10-day notice, and the Haslams ignored it. The Haslams violated the law by failing to notify any Cleveland residents that they had a chance to buy the team. The lawsuit claims that the Haslams are abandoning the city of Cleveland, saying the taxpayers have poured money into this franchise, into the current stadium, hundreds of millions of dollars over decades. The court now has a big decision to make, because if you enforce this Modell law against the Haslams, here's how it plays out. There's a court ruling that the Haslams indeed have to give the opportunity to a local Clevelander to buy the team. It doesn't say anywhere in the Modell law that the Haslams have to agree to sell the team. It's giving the opportunity for the team to be sold. If I'm the Haslams, I would have avoided all this if I were their lawyer, and I would have said, listen, let's follow the rule of law by the letter. Let's give people an offer. Let's put an ad in the paper. Anybody interested in buying the team? $10 billion. I'm allowed to set whatever price I want. There's nothing there that says that there's an appraiser and that the team has to be sold at the appraised right, that the owner can choose an appraiser, then the city of Cleveland could choose one, and then there could be a third independent one. You take the average, take the highest, take the lowest. There's all sorts of ways that agreements are done. It's not what this law says. Why would the Haslams not have saved the aggravation and done the easy step where you do something and it's eyewash? Eyewash to me is one of the great lessons of being in charge of a company, being the president of a team, being the owner of a team. We engage in eyewash every day. So do you. Stop pretending that you don't do things because you don't want to be seen as doing them or as having done them. Don't pretend that you don't do things just for the sake of hoping that they're noticed or that they're checking a box that you want to check so you can live with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth before you go to sleep. Why not do eyewash here and make the team available and therefore you avoid the aggravation of a lawsuit. Aggravation. Think Steve Cohen is aggravated right now? I meant to ask Coca you this before the show. Have the Mets improved since last year? What is our thought on the Mets? Do you have an update, Coca, on the Mets win total for this coming season with Juan Soto? If you have that, let me know. Yell it in my ear or put it on the document. Because when you look at the Mets team without Pete Alonso and with Juan Soto, I told you their increment is only between Alonso and Soto. What is that? 1 win, 1.5 wins, 2 wins? Is it crazy enough to tell you that Juan Soto's worth 3 wins by himself? That's a lot of wins for a player. Oh, David, Juan Soto can be 7 wins above replacement. There is no player who gives you 7 games a season. Not one. Not even a pitcher. Not even a Cy Young pitcher. I don't care what the stats say, and neither do other baseball people. Little known fact about baseball people, they do not look at wins above replacement and say, oh, all I have to do is trade it. If I've got 10 guys at 9 wins above replacement, I'm a 90-win team. Not how it works. Pete Alonso is going down the same path as Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger. Scott Boras clients who can't find a team to pay what Boras promised the player he would get, and therefore the player goes into January, February spring training unsigned and then ends up settling for a short-term deal with opt-outs after a year or two, hoping that the player can get back into free agency and somehow there'll be more money by different teams available for that player. It worked with Blake Snell. It worked with Chapman. It didn't work with Bellinger. It didn't work with Montgomery. Pete Alonso and the Mets are involved in a game of chicken right now, and there is no excuse for a team to ever lose a game of chicken with a player. Ever. Only if you are a scared cat. Only if you believe the leaks that are done by Boras of all the teams interested in Alonso. The Mets did something yesterday that I love. A tip of the chapeau to Steve Cohen, who got a leak out there that the Mets would be interested in trading for Vlad Guerrero Jr. to play first base. God bless you, New York Mets. You think Scott Boras read that? You think Pete Alonso read it? Pete called up Scott and said, dude, Scott, what are we doing? They're going to trade for Guerrero, and all of a sudden, they're not going to need a first baseman. Then what am I going to do? Then all of a sudden, I'm going to a different team, but no other teams are giving me what I want. So we have to settle on a crappy deal with a new team, and everyone's going to know that no one wanted me and that my worth was overstated. What do we do here, Scott? Scott would say, Pete, calm down. The Blue Jays are not trading Vlad Guerrero Jr. to the New York Mets. It's never going to happen. But it doesn't matter, Scott, Pete would say, whether that trade happens or not. The Mets are threatening to move on. Your guy, John Heyman, himself wrote an article about how the Mets could move on to Tanner Scott, build their bullpen, maybe sign Santander, the 40-home run guy who also has an overinflated sense of worth after a Brady Anderson season. Nah, that's being too harsh. I don't mean to be that harsh. If you don't know what a Brady Anderson season is, then Google it. Look up Brady Anderson 50 home runs, and there's a picture of a big, fat, 3-inch needle right next to it, I assume. God, it's so easy to be tricked when you are a baseball executive. So easy to take recency bias and parlay that into an overpay to a player. My God, look at that season he just had. He's on his way. This is just the beginning. Always, we talked about Brady Anderson in our baseball room when we were making deals and signings, and we would use it as a verb. He's a verb now. Don't get Brady'd. That means that don't get too excited about one season, which is an outlier, and think that that's going to become the norm and not the exception. You look at trends. The Mets have looked at Pete Alonso and said at 30 years old, We do not see a value of him for 9 years. I told you this on the show. They can't sign him to a long-term deal that he wants because he's going to end up being a DH, and the Mets already signed a DH for the next 15 years. There is no scenario where Pete Alonso and Juan Soto can be on the Mets 7 years from now, 6 years from now, 5 years from now. There is no scenario. So the Mets have, in a smart way, offered a short-term deal, and Alonso's told them to pound sand because Scott Boras said, forget it. We'll wait. Someone's going to come up with 6 guaranteed, Pete. You're going to get 180 over 6. I know we're thinking that we told people 200, but if we get you 180 over 6, you're going to love me. You're going to love me forever. Love me for a long time. But it's not out there. How do I think this ends? With tears and a journey. It's my favorite expression. It ends with Vlad Jr. not being traded by the Blue Jays. It ends with Pete Alonso giving in and signing with the Mets. And it ends with the Mets then bringing Alonso back and having Soto be a true incremental difference maker for their team. We told you that the Mets were going to have to spend more than just on Soto in order to be good. Coca, did you ever find the win total for the New York Mets? Is it out yet? Is it in the 80s? 85, 86? I think I lost him. I don't even hear him. I don't even see him. I wonder if he's in the restroom. Maybe I'll find him during the break. When we come back, we're going to review one of my top 100 movies. Then we're going to talk about something that happened yesterday. 91.5? Wow. That's a very high over-under total, isn't it? I wonder what it goes to if they sign Pete Alonso. Does it go to 92.5? And then maybe they get Tanner Scott. It goes to 93? Do you think that David Stearns and Stephen Cohen are like, hey, man, we got to get to the mid to upper 90s. Let's get to Dodger territory. Do you have a list of teams, Coca? Where are the Mets at 91.5? I think that would put them third behind Dodgers, tied with Phillies. Okay. Interesting. All right, we come back. We're going to talk about something that really made me sad, and it's going to be a debate that I want you to have internally. I'm really going to want to hear your point of view on this, and we'll talk about it after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson every day, 8 a.m. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for downloading and listening no matter what time it is. If you're on the DraftKings Network, we appreciate that too. That means it's about 10:27 a.m. Eastern. Every Thursday, we've decided to review one of the top 100 movies. The still not updated top 100 movies. I last updated a year ago. It may have been 2 years even, Coca, which is even worse. But we have a list on davidsamsonpodcast.com. My number 33 movie of all time is a movie called Rain Man. Rain Man was an Academy Award-winning movie directed by the great Barry Levinson. I was about to say the late, great Barry Levinson, and I don't think he's a late, great director. I think he's just a great, great director. Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman. Why would it be the 33rd best movie I've ever seen? Because the performance by Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise, it's a brother movie and a buddy movie. They are brothers. Tom Cruise's character arc goes from straight businessman, straight user of his brother Raymond, and into a developed cross-country road trip-based relationship that's based on love, family, respect, admiration, wonder. The performance by Dustin Hoffman is so convincing that you'd think he had autism. He won an Oscar because his performance was his career best in a career. Are you trying to seduce me? We're talking about a career that is amongst the top 10 of any living thespian. And he is an octogenarian now. There are people who have not seen Rain Man, and I don't know why. It ages perfectly. I got to watch it this past week. I think I watched it this weekend. I can't remember when I did. It's perfect. There's not one word of the screenplay I would change. And if you don't know the cultural references, like Judge Wapner, it doesn't matter. If you don't understand the things that he's doing or saying, or think that there's somehow, some way that we should have had an autistic actor in the role, and all the things that have come up in the 2020s, were to be the maestro, you have to have no prosthetic nose and you have to be Jewish. To be trans, you have to be trans. All of the things that have been asked of our society, of our community for inclusion, let's not throw away performances that were absolutely perfect. Rain Man, please check it out if you haven't. We have a random number generator, and we have generated number 47 for next Thursday, the Crying Game. For those of you who have been around for 1,200 episodes, this is episode 1,200 of Nothing Personal, the regular episodes where we have a word of the day, a pick of the day, a wait to see. 1,200. Not one of them. That's not true, actually, Coca. I think that Mikey may have done a few episodes over the 1,200, but you've done like 1,197, plus all the sit downs and all of the mailbags. God, do we love and appreciate our audience. Thank you so much. I don't take it for granted. I got to give a wait to see, by the way, Coca. Make it official, because I didn't make it official, and I had it written down that I wanted to make it official. It's such an easy one, but I like winning. Vlad Guerrero Jr. will not be traded to the Mets in 2025. At any time in 2025, even when the Blue Jays stink at the deadline and the Mets are looking for another bat, Vladimir Jr. will not be traded to the Mets in 2025. Wait to see. That's now official, Coca. It's been said on the show. All right, one of you asked a question, and here comes the topic that will be the biggest debate of today's show for the audience. Go ahead, Coca.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson from the movie Half Baked. Have at it. Enjoy the edible. Get into my Twitter, David P. Samson, DavidSamsonPodcast.com. Ask me a question. It may make the show. If it's about a current thing that's happening that interests me, it really may make the show. What's up, David? That's a little too colloquial, but I'm not upset with you. What do you say to your player when they tell you they don't want to sign stuff? I love questions that you're assuming that I know what the heck you're talking about, and that you are assuming that I'm up to date on the news of the day because of my obsession with TikTok that's somehow going to have to change on Sunday when TikTok disappears. And I'm going to say, oh my God, I got to watch Reels now all day. Maybe I could read a book about inner excellence, spend my time doing that. Or maybe The Gentleman of Moscow. This question that you're asking is about Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama is a center for the San Antonio Spurs. He is going to be, if not already, one of the top 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 players in the National Basketball Association. He is what Ralph Sampson could have been and almost was. A combination of height, agility, power, playmaking, shooting. He's the full package. After a game recently, Victor Wembanyama created a memory for a kid sitting courtside. It's a new thing. This didn't happen when I was growing up. Dwayne Wade did it every day of his farewell tour. He'd rip off his jersey to show his skin-tight Giancarlo Stanton undershirt, which Giancarlo pulls off way better than Dwayne, but Dwayne did very well for himself. Don't get me wrong. There'd be a jersey exchange with players. You saw on the field, was it Lamar Jackson after the game last week, Coca, who was on his knees signing a jersey to somebody on the team that he beat? And it's already not even been a week, and I can't remember who the Ravens beat. That's unbelievable. The Steelers. Did Lamar, it was his cousin? Why did he have to do it in the middle of the field with cameras watching him sign it? There's a whole place that we have in the clubhouse where jersey exchanges happen with players. It happens every game. So the story is is that Victor Wembanyama did an exchange with the cutest kid in the world after a game. Look at this little kid. Doesn't even go up to his pupik and was wearing a number 1 Wembanyama extra small child's jersey and gave the kid's jersey to Victor. Victor gave his game-worn jersey to the kid, and the moment went viral. It was a beautiful moment. And guess what happened yesterday? Golden, the company that auctions off memorabilia, announced that that jersey is up for auction, and they're opening the bid at $10,000. This auction's going to start Wednesday, a week from yesterday. People want to get a game-worn Wembanyama jersey that was part of this viral, beautiful moment. You can bid here today. And the debate started. Victor himself gave you his view. He tweeted a very simple emoji of him crying. Why was he crying? Because Victor has now said in his mind, why? Why in the world would I think that I'm doing something really cute, really nice for this little child? And it was all for profit. It was all a setup by the parents. All through the season, we've got kids asking for autographs from players, and players walk by those kids because they say those kids are being paid by collectors to be kids and to get a better chance of getting signatures that collectors can then sell. When I say to players, please sign an autograph, please, you will make a forever memory. And players said to me, I'll do it, but I don't do it all the time. And when I do it, I feel like sometimes I'm getting used, sometimes I'm getting screwed. And I would say, no, you're making a lifetime memory. You'll forget about signing that autograph in 2 seconds. And that child, that person, that connection you made lasts a lifetime. The players have cynicism drilled into them that I, Mr. Cynic himself, wanted to not believe as president of a team, and I am broken right now. I can't look one player in the eyes and ask him to sign anything, ever, unless it's part of a memorabilia deal that these players get with dealers where they get paid. Why is it that Victor should do something so good for a child? Now, maybe he didn't think the child was destitute, sitting in the front row. Maybe the child came down from the rafters. Maybe this family doesn't have water, doesn't have food, doesn't have shelter, doesn't have clothing. Maybe this was the way for the family to get on its feet. Maybe they're using this for the college education of the child. And who am I to take that right away? The fight that I'm having inside is on the assumption that the family needed the money desperately and that it wasn't a planned action, that they saw the moment go viral and they said, I could take advantage of this moment. It is very hard for me to argue against a family doing that who's trying to find a way to make a living in times that it's really super hard for families to make a living. But then what are they doing sitting courtside? Maybe I'm the wrong vessel for this kind of conversation, a person of privilege. I had something like this happen to me. When I was a child, there was an artist named Roberto Matta. Look him up. He's an unreal surrealist. Haha, that's funny. Just an absolute perfect artist. And I was lucky enough to grow up in a household of art dealers who introduced me to the world of art, who knew artists, where I had an opportunity to meet unbelievable artists of their time, from Henry Moore to Roy Lichtenstein. I could look at me, Louis, all day. Larry Rivers. Matta stayed in my bedroom, and I had to move and sleep like on a couch for 5 days while Matta stayed in my bedroom while he was in New York doing a show. When he left, I went back to my room, and waiting on my desk was a piece of graph paper. If you know what graph paper is, you're my age. If you don't, doesn't matter. It's a piece of paper that I used to do math equations in 3rd grade. And Mata did an original drawing for me and signed it. And I have saved it. I could have sold it at any moment of my life. He created value just by writing on a piece of paper. It's what athletes create value. All they have to do is sign something and they've created value. Give a game-worn item, they've created value, sometimes up to millions of dollars. The Mata drawing's not millions of dollars. But the reason I never sold it is because while it's an asset, I always wanted to keep the memory. We're all in a position where at some point in our lives, something happens to our memories. We're all in a position where our stuff is just stuff at some point, and you assign a value to it, anywhere from 0 to infinity. And then you realize that the world we live in, your stuff could disappear tomorrow. Talk to the thousands of people in Southern California, all of whose stuff is now gone in a pile of ash. Maybe the right thing is to have no stuff, to go full George Clooney up in the air. Put all that you own in a backpack. Realize how heavy it is. Leave the backpack and you will be free, unencumbered. Once you get over the fact that you have no stuff or you sold your stuff or lost your stuff, I assume there's a level of freedom that comes after the care of, oh my God, I don't have clothes to wear. I don't have a place to sleep. I think about it all the time because I have so much stuff. I think about the fact that the stuff that I have is meaningful to me, and George Carlin comes to mind. My stuff is someone else's crap, and your stuff is crap to me. Everything is our own stuff, except things that have a market value. A market value for Victor Wembanyama is 10 grand for a game-worn jersey. Where do you come out on this? Just answer the question. Would you be okay with, as the kid selling the jersey? If you have no other facts, the kid sits courtside and doesn't need the 10 grand for his life, are you okay with him selling the jersey? Because let me tell you, Victor Wembanyama's went 4869. I will, Coke, 1 second. Victor Wembanyama will not sign another kid's jersey or do another jersey swap. You just watch. Nothing personal pick of the day. We had the Lakers -5 over the Heat. That's a win. We are 3-4 for the season. Do we have a game for you tonight? The Thunder are -2 against the Cavaliers. The Thunder are 13-1 in their past 14 games. The only loss they've had was that loss to Cleveland that happened 8 days ago by 7 points. This game is in OKC. The more the season unravels, the more I see this as a finals matchup, and the more I think that the Thunder are going to win the title. And I think I had the Thunder in the finals preseason, but I don't think I had them winning the title. But I do have them winning this game. Thunder -2 over the Cavs. That is my nothing personal pick of the day. There was a big hiring that took place yesterday. It had been rumored for months. We've talked about LIV Golf and PGA Golf and the fact that they could not get their act together. There has been no merger. There have been investments in PGA. Remember John Henry, Fenway Group. They started and led a group that includes Steve Cohen of people who invested in PGA. PGA is doing a deal with Saudi Arabia, sovereign wealth funds to get money invested, but they have no deal to merge yet with LIV. LIV ended up hiring a new CEO. They jettisoned Greg Norman, who's a golfer, not a CEO, does have a successful clothing company. They hired Scott O'Neill, who is a executive, is a CEO. He had done some time at the Garden. Take a look at him. He's got a very interesting resume. And what it shows to me is that LIV is looking at going at this solo. They are not assuming they're going to get eaten up by PGA or in any sort of merger. They would not keep control. I cannot imagine that Scott O'Neill would have chosen to take this job as CEO only for an interim period, thinking that a deal was going to happen. LIV has had problems getting off the ground. They've lost a ton of money. The funders of LIV, as you know, the sovereign fund, they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars billions of dollars. They could not get a TV deal with anyone but the CW. But now broadcasters are realizing, they've got a bunch of named golfers. People like watching golf. We need live sports programming. Screw it. We're going to do a deal. LIV is entering its third season, and they just cut a deal with Fox. This is actually a big deal, going from CW to Fox. Fox is a genuine player in the rights market. Fox Sports is going to air live coverage of the 14 tournament schedule that LIV has. Fox has actually agreed that Fox FS1, they're going to use FS2. They could even use Fox Business, which certainly does have the demographic support that is golf. They're going to use their Fox Sports app. They're going to bring everything to bear under the Fox name to try to prop up LIV. LIV is not currently getting a ton of money for their rights. This deal with Fox, you will find, is not a huge cash deal, but the exposure that LIV will get, it is the next stage, the next step in making yourself a mature league. Finding a legitimate broadcaster legitimizes your illegitimate sport. What better washing is there than the washing that comes with a major network? It's fantastic. Scott O'Neill actually said it out loud. LIV Golf is getting bigger and bolder, and this relationship signals the next phase of growth as our league joins the company of the nation's premier sports leagues and conferences. Sound like the quote that you would do when you sign with Fox, not with the CW? I want to thank the Fox Sports team who share our vision for the future of golf, a new model that is redefining how the sport is experienced. Fox doesn't give a flying rat's pituitary gland about that. They want the hours of programming, but I digress. LIV Golf is drawing a younger, more active and tech-savvy fan base. And as our players and teams prepare for LIV Golf's biggest season yet, this agreement will take our broadcast to new heights. God bless. Hallelujah. It's like a cult. They did get the EVP of Fox Sports to give an interesting quote. Fox Sports is excited to broadcast the LIV Golf League. Well, they had an opportunity the last 3 years. What made them excited now? The relationship with Scott O'Neill, the fact that it's become more legitimate, the fact that people don't complain anymore about how LIV Golf gets funded, the fact that we've moved on to other issues, the fact that we're distracted the way we always are. When something bad happens, just tourniquet it. Hold on. Wait for the next story because it's coming no matter what. Every time you think that you can't get through the bad press, that you feel like you have to disappear forever, just remember, in about 2 days, no one will care what you did. Fox Sports is excited to broadcast the LIV Golf League, showcasing athletes at the top of their game, competing at an elite level for viewers across the nation. The addition of LIV Golf, this is Fox Sports talking, is a natural fit for Fox Sports. Just out of curiosity, just between us, what changes when a network is in a sport, then out of a sport? They bid for a sport, then they let a sport go, then they bid again because they want a package. Networks are no different than teams who go from one coach to another coach, different types of coach, offensive coach, defensive coach. We live in a world where we're constantly recalibrating. We go to one extreme and then we stop. We work out like crazy, then take a break. We work our kazungas off and then we take a vacation. We're always trying to get back to par. Pun intended. Fox is doing the same thing. They had a view of LIV, even with what their political proclivities are. It was not worth it to do a deal. But then everybody just moved on, and Fox steps in and does this deal. LIV all of a sudden gets to look at PGA and say, we don't need you the way you thought that we needed you, and we're not going anywhere. While it's true that the owner of our tournament does not, and of our league does not want to lose billions of dollars going forward, look, we're doing revenue hand over fist. By the way, Fox, don't tell anyone the size of the deal. We're going to pretend that it's for a ton of cash. We're going to pretend that this is a deal that can buttress this league and make LIV the premier golf destination to really put a dent in PGA. That is not what this broadcast deal is going to do. Does it give LIV legitimacy? Yeah. Does it give them leverage? Maybe. Is it just business? You betcha. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.